Second video on Introduction to the TVM Solver, solving financial problems involving compound interest. So we're still just getting to know the TVM solver. We're still only dealing with compound interest, not the sort of loans or investment when you're making extra payments or taking more out. But simple investments like this one, just looking at compound interest to get a feel for the TVM solver. So you can solve for anything. Last lesson we were solving to find the future value. But we can solve to find, so for example in this one, what is the minimum annual interest rate that someone will need to hit a particular target. So your steps, anytime you're dealing with the TVM solver, start by identifying your known values. And you probably do need, you can't sort of go just like, we'll identify all of the ones we know and whatever's left we're solving for, because there's often a bit of ambiguity still. So you'll need to read the question to identify the unknown that we're solving for. But the good news is that the question does give you that. What is the minimum annual interest rate? That's it, we're looking for the interest rate. So read the question to identify the unknown we're solving for. TVM solver. And once you've got your answer, give the TVM display and a word answer. So, Antonella has $40,000 to invest. She would like to have at least $50,000 in that account after 3 years. So, what is the minimum annual interest rate, compounding monthly, that she will need? We write out our TVM solver, and you'll notice that I tend to put everything in here before I go anywhere near my calculator. It means I'm less likely to make a silly mistake. So we look for the information that we need. Compounding monthly says that PY and CY are both 12, and that means I'm going to have a 12 in my N times by, or multiplied by, the number of years, which is 3 years. And I can always just do that in the calculator. Antonella has $40,000 to invest. So this is my present value. Now remember, the question is, for Antonella in this case, is she keeping the use of the money? Or is she giving up the use of the money for those 3 years? She's investing it. She won't have the use of that money. We put our present value in as negative 40,000. There are no payments being made on this. She's not putting in anything else. And this is our future value, because after 3 years, into the future, she'd like to have this much. So we put our future value in. Now your future value will need to go in as a positive, because of course what we want to happen is she's getting back 50,000 at the end of 5 years. So she's handed away 40,000 now, so it's negative, and we'll get back a positive amount at the end. And the interest rate is what we're going to be solving for, because A, it's there in the question, what's the interest rate she'll need, and B, it's the only thing left that's not filled in because we know there's no payments. So then we put everything in, 12 for PY and CY, 12 times 3 just to make sure I did the maths right. Leave that as a 0 so we can come back to it. Negative 40,000 using the negative key Payments are 0, future value we want to be 50,000. And then you move your cursor to what you want to solve for, and alpha, solve. And she will need an interest rate of at least 7.46%, so we'll go to 1 decimal place. So often you can give your answer here as 7.4612. Just keep a few extra decimal places some of the time when you're giving your answer up in here, but then if the question said 1 decimal place, then what is the minimum annual interest rate? So I answer the minimum annual interest rate she will need is 7.5%. So this is how you solve the problems. Identify your known values, look at the question for the unknown we're solving for, TVM solver, display, word answer. Now the question carries on. If what she finds is an account that's a little bit higher, with an interest rate that's higher, how long will it take for the investment to grow to 60,000 instead? So we're going back to her original scenario. She's got 40,000 to invest, but now the question is saying, because you look for the actual question, and it's how long will it take? When you're solving for how long it will take, that means you're solving for n. So let's put our TVM display ready to go. And scan through for what you need. Compounding monthly means that PY and CY are 12 because there's 12 months in a year, and that N will be, now, we don't put 12 times anything here because N will be the thing we're looking for. We're solving for N. Interest rate we've got 7.8. Remember, we leave that as annually. The present value came from the original question, 40,000. And remember, this is an investment, negative 40,000. Payments, there's still no extra payments going in with 0. And the future value, we'd like to get it to 60,000 instead. So at that point, you go back in, and a lot of the data's in there for you, so you don't need to go erasing everything. We can't just clear N and move on. I'm pushing the down button, it's not working. Leave a 0 in N and we'll come back and solve for it. Interest rate changes, it's now 7.8% in this question. We've written that down. Negative 40,000 is still correct, 0 is correct. We're aiming for 60,000. PY and CY are still 12. So the big tip we just learnt there is when you have to move past something that you'll solve for, leave a 0 in its place. And then we solve for N. Alpha, solve, 62.58. Now, solve for N, 62.58. This is in whatever compounding period the question is in. So this is 62.58 months. You do need to be quite careful when you're rounding. You will need to round up to the nearest month. Not just round to the nearest month, we round up. So no matter how much over 62 it is, 62.001, we'd go up to 63. We'll talk about why. Round up. Now why is because if we want to get to 60,000 and it will take 62.5 months, we only work in full months. At 62 months, she won't be quite up to 60,000. So we've got to go to 63 months. So the answer is 63 months. Now, if they've said answer in months, then great, we've got our answer. It will take 63 months for the investment to get to 60,000. 63 months is a bit of a silly answer if we're talking to an everyday person. So what you might prefer to do is take your 63 months and divide by 12, 5¼ years. So when you give your answer, it will take, you might as well write 63 months or 5 years, and you'd normally give your answer in years and months. If you're not sure what the decimal is, or if it's a bit harder, because a quarter is easy, it's 3 months. But if you're not certain, just 0.25, the decimal part, because this is in years now, this is 0.25 of a year, to get that back to months, times 12, oops, 3 months, 5 years and 3 months. So it's sensible to be able to give your answer either as months or weeks or whatever, or years and months or weeks. It's useful to be able to do either.